Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Hour. Today we have a jam-packed news segment. We are going to be talking about Nvda earnings. That probably is going to be the biggest news story of the day. Honestly, there's so much going on for Nvda. It would probably take up the whole hour, the whole stream. So I'm going to just give you guys just a quick recap because I think it is very important, especially for those of us who are following the AI trade, especially for those of us investing in memory in Nvidia as well. Okay, so we'll be going over Jensen Huang talking about some of his key points and some key points from the earning call. All right, then we'll kind of move into some geopolitics. All right, there is an update on this whole Iran war update. So we will talk about it. There was also some very concerning news coming out of the Fed minutes. All right, the Fed minutes, I mentioned this yesterday. The last FOMC meeting that they had, they were going to release the Fed minutes, and we'd understand exactly where the Fed kind of, fits in and what they're thinking about with this whole thing with energy disruption, inflation, etc. So we will be talking about that. We have some news lined up for Openai, Anthropic, and a video about SpaceX. So we will be covering all three. Those are going to be the three largest IPOs probably to date. Okay, so we also are going to talk about what's going on in Korea because it's more or less just a small news item, but still pretty large nonetheless. So we will be talking about all of that. Now, I do have what's going on here? Hold on. We got some issues over here going on with X. There we go. Okay, X is back now. Hopefully X kind of maintains. So before I even get started, I need to do a quick sound test, because I'm not sure. I'm using Firefox as my new kind of streaming platform, and I couldn't test this beforehand. So I just want to know if you guys can, in fact, hear this. Let me move this over here. Let me know if you guys can hear. We'll listen to Tom Lee real fast. Can you guys hear this? Sound check. Welcome to the Nvda Show, where the focus is on helping you grow and preserve your wealth. All right. Can you guys hear that? Quick sound check. Okay, so you can't hear the video. That is such a shame. I'm using Firefox now, and I'm hoping this thing will work. Let's see. Let me see. Hold on. If I can fix this while on the fly here. I apologize, for this. I really do want to get into, into the news segment, but I got to really figure this piece out because we have some videos that we want to go over. All right, appreciate that. I see let's see, Just Knit. Hey, welcome and thank you for that. I see Padre in the chat. Hey, welcome back. Thank you. We got Rod Stamon, Victor Sank, and Skeptic. All right, so give me 1 second while I try and fix this this sound issue. Unfortunately, it's just a pain in the butt when you switch browsers. So let me see if we could try this one more time. Let me remove this. Let me stop the screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, we want that. And it says, okay, allow. Okay. Okay, can you guys hear this? Can you guys hear this? Give me a yes or no in the chat if you can. Look at our boy over here. Look at our boy just doing it. It's not Jim anymore. It's Rank or Frank. Oh, they messed up the F. Okay, so it's our boy Frank over here putting in that OT. Look, 176 hours, 219 packages. Okay, so you guys cannot hear the video. Let me see if I can fix it on my end. Share the screen. Allowed. Everything is allowed. I don't know why the sound is not working. Give me a second here. Oh, I love technical difficulties when you're trying to stream. All right, let me know if you guys can hear that while I try to figure something else out. Welcome to the Nvda Show, where the focus is on growth and preserving wealth. Join us as we discuss the craft of investing and uncover new profitable ideas, all to help you grow wealthier and wiser. Better investing starts Firefox. Nvda is the co-founder and chief investment officer at Cambria Investment Management. Due to industry regulations, he will not discuss any of Cambria's funds on this podcast. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Cambria Investment Management or its affiliates.
For more information, visit CambriaInvestments.com.
Oh, wow, that's dumb.
Sponsored by Cambria. Do you hold
So you guys still can't hear that video, correct? Okay. All right. I think I know what's going on here. All right. Again, sorry for all of the okay, I think I got it here. I couldn't, yeah, unfortunately I couldn't test it beforehand. Okay. I think I got it here. Okay, let me add this to stage. Okay, let me know if you guys can hear this.
Investment positions with significant gains. What if you could transition into an ETF with investors contribute stocks or other securities to a newly formed ETF in exchange?
All right, you guys able to hear that sound? Dang. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, we will probably have to forego the videos on this stream because wait. So Rodstamon, you can actually hear the video. It's low volume. Okay. Well, I guess that's progress. Let's see. Hold on. Let me try this one more time.
Change for ETF shares.
Okay. Damn, that is so disappointing. It's always something with this browser and with StreamYard. Okay, we might have to just roll with it, guys. I don't want to waste any more time. I don't want to waste your guys' time for sure. Just seeing me troubleshoot some stuff. I might have to work on it in the background. Damn, that's so freaking. That's such a bummer. Okay, let me get rid of this. Let's go back here. Let's see what we can do. Okay, you know what? It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. We won't be able to have video for today. I will have to troubleshoot this on the back end. I wanted to at least present this, without having my computer freeze because Google Chrome loves to eat the memory. So hopefully this will still be a good stream. Let me just, man, I want the sound for stereo audio. No, that's not it. Automatically adjust mic volume. Nope, that's not it either. Man, Firefox, you're really killing me here. Let's see. Allowed. Everything's allowed. Okay, that died. Okay. Select window. Screen 2. Okay, allow. Yes. All right. Okay. Anyways, guys, I don't want to waste any more time. All right, let's get into it, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this stream. We're going to be going over a ton of stuff. We're going to be going over Nvda. Again, we're going to be going over some geopolitics, the big 3, IPOs that will be dropping. Well, maybe we're only going to listen to 2 because one of them was a video. And we'll kind of wrap up this stream. All right. So I appreciate you guys joining. Thank you for hanging in there with me while I'm troubleshooting this technical stuff. Let's take a look over at the heat map, and my God, what a green day, right? That's essentially what we're feeling. I hope you guys are definitely feeling that, or at least seeing that in your portfolios, because today was absolutely a great day. Even though Nvidia had kind of a little bit of a pullback. All right. So let's take a look at the heat map, and we are seeing way more green than we are red. A lot of the major, Mag 7 are all posting green. We have this technology sector, semiconductors doing exceptionally well today. Even software getting a little bit of a bid up. All right, I'll take that. We have Microsoft, Oracle, Palantir doing well as well. We have Google, all right, obviously crushing it, and Amazon. The talk of the tape today, the talk of the town, the street was Nvidia. All right, we will be covering that. We have some aerospace and defense also doing well. Let's take a look at futures and seeing how we're looking. Right now, we're just looking a little down. All right, probably just some people taking some profits off the table, or there's probably some news breaking out soon. Anyways, S&P 500 down 26 basis points, NASDAQ down 35 basis points. And we see crude oil. All right. Crude oil Brent still above $100, but we have crude oil WTI Western, was it Texas, coming down $98. All right. So that is why we saw also a little bit of a pump, was because, there is a potential for a Iran deal. But I don't think that is going to be the whole story. I don't think that just because a deal happens that we're free and clear. Again, there's been talks these last couple of weeks of, hey, there's a deal. No, there's no deal. Hey, we're going to hit them. No, we're not going to hit them. Hey, they want to negotiate. Hey, we're going to hit them. I'm going to go off to China for a few days, come back. Hey, we're going to strike them. Oh, wait, there's a deal on the table, right? It's just a bunch of swinging back and forth. I think the market probably has, some neck issues after this. Coffee down. All right, I'll take that. Coffee is down. Okay, S&P 500 up 1 full percentage point. Again, anytime the S&P 500 NASDAQ move up or down a percent, it's a huge deal for the market, as we saw from the heat map. DRAM up 3.5%. All right, this was on positive news coming out of Nvidia's earning call. All right, Jensen Huang specifically mentioned the HBM and DRAM trade, the memory trade. All right. We have gold again, just getting a little bit of a bid. All right. Up 1.42%. Not bad. Still down 3% over the last 5 days, and still kind of just trending, flat, right? Not really climbing to its last former all-time high. But I think with the news about the Fed, a lot of people are going to start thinking about having gold in their portfolios. For me, it's gold and Bitcoin, because again, just to reiterate, especially for our new viewers or anyone who's never seen this stream, this year is going to be an inflation story. It's definitely going to be an inflation story. I am a firm believer of that, and it's already starting to shape up that way. Give me 1 second while I fix X. Let's see. Boom. Get that out of the way. Oh man, so much news today, guys. I mean, I was looking through kind of my news cycles, and absolutely insane the amount of good stuff coming out. And not just with the hyperscalers or the AI trade. There's even good stuff happening in crypto, which is kind of crazy. Hyperliquid, there's a lot of news and a lot of just a lot of positivity coming from that crypto coin and that brokerage. But neither here nor there. Okay, got X all figured out. Okay, Bitcoin, a little bit of a pump today. Okay, I'll take that. A little bit of a pump. It's starting to bounce off the 200 WMA, which is the weighted moving average. That is a nice sign. It is a higher low. So we are reaching. And I think we're going to break out soon. Again, just patience. If we breach that 200 WMA, then we are definitely going to go a little lower. But I surmise, just from looking at a couple of charts and listening to a couple of other kind of chartists out there and technical analysts, it'll probably hover in the 70s, high 70s, mid 70s, right? It's not gonna revisit those 60s and lower. I think we're past that. Personally, I think we're past that. Okay, let's move on. I see Sinusat Capital up in the mix. Good evening and morning to all. Hey, thank you, Sinusat, for joining. Unfortunately, we don't have videos today because Firefox and StreamYard just don't seem to want to vibe together. Yeah, so we can hear it, but it sounds like it's playing on the TV 8 feet away. That is probably because my mic is not too far from the speakers, so it's not broadcasting audio through the software, through StreamYard. Let's see what Skeptic has to say. The term for that is market manipulation. That is probably true. Okay, let's move on from here. We're gonna hit our first news item, and that is Nvidia. Nvidia absolutely crushing it, doing exceptionally well. All right, EPS beating by 6%, revenue by 3%. Those numbers don't look that sexy, but for a company that is trillions of dollars in market cap, I mean, that is pretty damn good, right? Everyone is holding their breath, and all they would have to do, all Nvidia would have to do, is post some bad numbers, and we would see the entire market just go kaput. But they're not. They're posting up smashing numbers, great numbers, the best numbers, as our commander in chief would probably say. So they're doing well. Okay, so what is all the humdrum about Nvidia and Nvidia's earnings call? Okay, Nvidia data center revenue nearly doubled. That is a huge, big deal. Okay, the report is strong, but the stock still slid. So let's take a look at a couple of different items here. So on the call, Jensen Huang announced an $80 billion buyback. They upped their dividend from like a penny to like, was it 25 cents or something like that? I mean, it's not going to make you super rich. You're more so betting on the appreciation of the stock. So guidance beat estimates. Nvidia, also reported their data center revenue doubling. They touched on the Iran war. Okay, they touched on it just a bit, so we'll cover that. And then they also talked about all these other hyperscalers creating their own chips, right? The ASIC chips. So we will talk about that here in a moment. All right, so excuse me, just some quick takeaways from the man himself. Just some quick takeaways. All right, this was an extraordinary quarter. Demand has gone parabolic, and this is coming right out of Jensen Huang's mouth. All right, Huang said, as he closed out the earnings call, the reason is simple: agentic AI has arrived. You guys will also notice I don't have highlighting on these pages, and that's because Firefox, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to have a good highlighter. Anyways, NVIDIA's involvement with the world's largest AI models is growing. NVIDIA is the only platform that runs frontier AI model, Huang said, mentioning Anthropic, OpenAI, SpaceX, Meta, and Google's Gemini. All right, the chip maker is powering every hyperscaler, supporting their core data processing, machine learning workloads, internal AI services, as well as supporting their demand for NVIDIA users in the public cloud services. The company's broad range of products is helping break into a new data center segment. All right, new AI native clouds and sovereign AI clouds on the premises, enterprise, and industrial infrastructure. Physical AI is the next wave. So he's talking about robotics. He's talking about AI in the real world, okay? Not just on your cell phone, not just on your computer, not just a prompt. He's talking about, the robotics. What I just showed earlier, we had the figure bot that's just been, doing packages for the last, week and a half or so with no break, absolutely no breaks, no time off, no day off, nothing, just moving packages, right? Just moving packages. Physical AI is the next wave, as he said. Adding that NVIDIA's CUDA software platform helps it extend into autonomous vehicles and robotics in particular. We've talked about the CUDA library from NVIDIA. Jensen Huang has said before that the NVIDIA CUDA library is the gift to the world, right? Is their gift to the world. It allows developers to develop, on CUDA, on their chip, on their GPUs, and able to develop their own, AI, their own, softwares, their own services. So the CUDA library is very extensive. It breaches into robotics. It breaches into even physics, chemistry. They have architecture in there, logistics. They have a ton of stuff in the CUDA library. And the Vera Rubin, which is the new CPU or the new chip that will be coming out of NVIDIA in the not too distant future, is a major new growth driver, opening up a $200 billion revenue opportunity if the company can capture the market. We did have some breaking news that just came out from NVIDIA. Okay, we will cover that in just a moment, specifically with this line here. Okay, if they can capture the market, because they just lost a very key market. The world is rebuilding computing for agentic AI and robotic and physical AI, Huang said. In closing, NVIDIA sits at the center of these transitions. We built it ahead of this moment so that when agentic AI arrived, NVIDIA would be ready. It has arrived. So again, just a bunch of positive news coming out of this earnings call. Absolute positive news coming out of the earnings call. So this was interesting about it. So he also mentioned that NVIDIA understands the frenemy model, right? Friends and enemies, right? The hyperscalers are also competing with NVIDIA. They're trying to move not just away, they're not moving away from NVIDIA, but they're also developing their own chips, right? The ASIC chips. You have Google, you had Meta talking about it. You have Amazon with their Trainium chips. Google's TPUs, which are, they're going to be using them in satellites or testing them in satellites in the future. We covered that with Project Suncatcher. So, this is interesting that that NVIDIA at least acknowledges this, that, the frenemy model, the hyperscalers depend on NVIDIA, but at the same time, the hyperscalers are also, kind of branching off into their own chips, right? There was a big hoopla about Google developing their own TPUs and then selling them to the open market. People sold off NVIDIA for that. People got out of NVIDIA for that, and NVIDIA stock kind of went down a bit. But the whole the whole notion of Google's TPUs taking out Nvidia is absolutely dumb. And the reason is because even Google's TPU engineer said that people do not understand market demand, supply and demand, right? Nvidia powers the entire market, right? Just because some companies may want to experiment with TPUs does not mean every company is going to move towards Google's TPUs. But that was a couple of months ago when that happened. Some of our customers are developing their own ASICs and other products, including designs optimized for certain workloads that may not require all the features and functionality of our data center systems provided. NVIDIA said in the filing, referring to a category of computer chips known as application-specific integrated circuits. Although NVIDIA did not name the customers, the tech hyperscalers, Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, have all been developing their own custom ASICs. Meta, for instance, showcased, in March, 4 custom chips that social media giant designed that Taiwan Semiconductor TSMC will manufacture. And then Google yesterday announced in conjunction with Blackstone that they are going to be creating a new AI infrastructure company. And this came out after I stopped the stream. It came out before the stream, but I did not cover it. I did not see the news article. But yes, Blackstone and Google are partnering on a new AI infrastructure company. As part of that, yet to be named AI firm, asset management giant Blackstone will invest $5 billion in equity capital. So again, more interesting things coming out. So moving on to that, Jensen Huang also talked about NVIDIA's Grok chips. Okay, not Grok like X, but Grok with a Q. All right, these are the direct competitors for Cerebras chips. All right, you had Grok and Cerebras. These are, they're basically competing for the same thing. Cerebras had an amazing IPO, smash the IPO. We listened to the CEO talk about, his company and talk about Cerebras and talk about, what it took to get there. But, he also talked about the biggest kind of geopolitical risk was Taiwan Semi, right? Being stuck in Taiwan if there's a geopolitical event to take place, i.e. China invading Taiwan or blockading Taiwan, it could spell disaster for just everybody, not just Cerebras. So, something to consider there. NVIDIA's custom AI chip that was the result of its $20 billion acquisition of Grok's tech will be a niche product for some time, Wang said on the earnings call. That's despite signs that big tech is hungry for alternatives to the company's costly sold-out GPUs. And that was another interesting thing here. The ASIC chips that the hyperscalers are making, it's more so they're giving optionality to a lot of their client base, to their customers. People who are developing on AWS or Microsoft Azure, they're going to want to try things on NVIDIA's GPUs. They're going to want to try things on AMD's GPUs and CPUs, and they're going to want to try things on TPUs and the other stuff that everyone else offers, like Amazon Trainian chips. So it's not a bad thing, to have that. I still think and believe that NVIDIA by itself is obviously powering the AI trade, the full AI trade, right? You will have all these little pockets of different chips, manufacturers doing specialty chips and GPUs. But at the end of the day, NVIDIA is the biggest dog in the house. Excuse me. So Jensen Huang also talked about how they're going to be doing, the reporting going forward. They're mostly going to be talking, or they're going to split their reporting. One segment's going to be on the data centers, and then edge computing eventually, right? So that's also big news because that's going to be the next frontier: robotics, AI, physical AI. So he also mentioned Vera Rubin's off to a great start. That's good, all right? He also brought up the Blackwell. So NVIDIA expects its next rack scale system for AI, Vera Rubin, will be even more successful than the Grace Blackwell, Wang said on the earnings call. The primary reason, Wang added, is that because we're growing share of inference very, very quickly. All right, as a number of frontier model companies grow, he cited Anthropic as a key new customer this year, providing secure compute for Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and CoreWeave. All right, the Vera Rubin system is comprised of 1.3 million components, including 72 Rubin GPUs, 36 Vera Rubin CPUs. All right, NVIDIA says it delivers 10 times more performance per watt than the predecessor Grace Blackwell. Excuse me, I cannot speak today. Okay, so anyways, NVIDIA just smashed it. The earnings call, I have not listened to it. I definitely want to listen to it as soon as the stream concludes. just a lot of good news. However, the talk of the town right now is what was happening or what happened in China. Okay. Because that was on top of everyone's mind. What is going to happen? Are they going to be able to sell their chips? Are they good? Are they going to start including that in their next, in their forecast or in their next earnings call? What's happening with China? Are they going to be buying or not? And Nvidia straight out came out and said, Nvidia largely conceded China's AI chip market to Huawei. Okay, so Huawei has completely taken over. A big portion of this was because of the Trump's administration, basically not allowing Nvidia AMD to sell their chips to China. So Huawei came in and took it over. But not only that, China was also trying to beef up their own industry, trying to beef up their own, manufacturers. And to buy domestic, right, to get themselves off of, U.S. Supply chains, i.e. Nvidia. So that's a big hit. But at the same time, Nvidia is still putting up great numbers. That's what the whole going to Europe and talking up a storm and sovereign AI and all these data centers being built in Europe and the Middle East. This is where Nvidia kind of made up for the China market, even though the China market was still vastly larger than those deals made in the Middle East and in Europe. Nvidia is still able to cook, right? Nvidia is still able to cook. Jensen Huang said the company has largely conceded China's artificial intelligence chip market to Huawei as U.S. export restrictions continue to reshape the global AI semiconductor space. The demand in China is quite large, Huang told CNBC's Sarah Eisen. Huawei is very, very strong. They had a record year. They're very likely, have an extraordinary year coming up. And their local ecosystem of chip companies are doing quite well because we've evacuated the market. All right. We've really largely conceded that market to them, he said. All right. So that was huge news. And that was obviously not good news. A lot of people were expecting, Nvidia to re-enter the China market after this Trump visit. And after Nvidia, Jensen Huang was picked up in Alaska, he pulled a Mission Impossible and jumped on the plane as it was moving. But doesn't look like any good news really came out of that China visit. Anything we didn't already know. The big thing we already knew was that Trump was going to allow Nvidia to sell their chips through a couple of intermediaries, companies based in China. But they would have to pay a fee to the U.S. government. And then not only that, so much time has lapsed. There's so much uncertainty. China accuses Nvidia, the Chinese government accuses Nvidia of having backdoors in their chips, right? Which is not a good thing, especially when, these chips are going to be used for government, the government use or military use. It would suck to have just a tech company shut off all the chips in your robots, right? Or, your data centers. So that was a part of the worry as well, coming from the Chinese perspective. And again, Nvidia is still not forecasting any China revenue, any sales in China, and they're still able to put up great numbers and still able to produce, large sums of chips, and large demand for their chips, right? So even though they're losing the Chinese market for now, can they re-enter at a later time? Can they start, the Chinese start buying Nvidia chips in the near future? We will see. Right. We will see. I don't think it'll be unheard of. I don't know what the performance of Huawei chips are compared to Nvidia. But I do know that, the H200, that was the chip. It was a watered down chip that was able to be sold to China. And Huawei was having trouble just competing with that. So for them to come out and say that, Huawei is going to have better chips than Nvidia, I mean, I'm waiting to see what happens. But again, Jensen Huang is so plugged into that market that he would know. And for him to just say, yeah, Huawei has the market, we lost it, nothing we can really do, and they're going to have a stellar year ahead of them, then that's kind of, telling me that Huawei is developing their chips to compete to compete at scale with Nvidia, not just in terms of performance, but also in sales. So it sucks that Nvidia lost that market, but it is what it is, as they say. Let me check the super chat because I have not checked it in a little bit. Yeah, Fred is a dedicated worker talking about our robot, our figure bot that's just been putting in that work. Let's see. We have Sergio in the chat. Hey, welcome, MJ Bowhunter. What's up? Good evening. Let's see what else we have. Sergio says, give me some of that NVIDIA NVQ link quantum connection. Yes, quantum is not too far off, man. I'm starting to become a believer. Let's see. Padre says, ARM CEO said people better watch out for their new chips. ARM, I think ARM might be, kind of a sleeping giant, maybe not competing with, Nvidia, the likes of Nvidia, but I think they might be a sleeping giant. They might be coming out with some banger stuff, because we haven't really heard of anything from ARM. I mean, they lost that contract with Apple like some time ago, a long time ago, and that was a massive hit to the company. But they're still in a lot of other cell phones. Qualcomm is their probably their biggest competitor, I think. ARM would probably be, because Qualcomm's also in a ton of devices as well, cell phones, tablets, that type of stuff. But you have ARM also in those same devices. So we'll see. I mean, I know ARM was developing a new AI chip, so was Qualcomm, the Qualcomm Snapdragon. So we will see. Let's see what we have here. Sydney Sat, thanks, Eugene Vasquez. My ESPN Sports Center highlights version of investing. I appreciate that. That's exactly kind of the aim for this channel. Unfortunately, again, to reiterate to the audience, well, first off, appreciate the audience for joining. All right, right now we have about 35 viewers on YouTube across the two channels, and we have about 40 viewers on X. Appreciate you guys joining me. Just a quick plug, just to remind you guys, this is my new YouTube channel. This is where all the live streams will live. I will eventually be migrating off of my old channel onto this new channel. You can plug into YouTube at Eugene Invest to find this channel. Okay. But going back to Sinusat Capital, appreciate that. It really does mean a lot. And I see we have a super chat, and I thank you for that super chat, sir. I really do appreciate that support. Okay. That is going straight into the coffee fund, because we need coffee to power this whole stream. All right, coffee powers the stream. It's not just Nvidia and DRAM and what do I have for a chip? I have Intel Core i7. So it's not just these chips that are powering this stream or this flaky internet that I have, but it's also a lot of coffee. So I do appreciate you and your support. Let's see what else we have. So Sergio says, well, okay, no China, but it's not forever. And that's kind of what I'm thinking too. I don't think this is going to be a forever thing. I mean, you still have under the hood. You had SMCI, Supermicro, not long ago, got busted for sending a bunch of NVIDIA chips. I think China underneath, they put up a public face and say, oh, we don't want NVIDIA chips, are bad, but they're looking for ways to basically have shell companies and to broker NVIDIA chip sales right into their country. I still think there's a large demand for NVIDIA chips that's just not being publicly disclosed. And the United States knows this, right? They've been cutting off all these trade routes, because that was the big concern with, the Middle East, right? There's a lot of Middle Eastern countries that had, direct ties to, Chinese firms, Chinese government type of stuff. And they didn't want to sell chips to them, especially the UAE, because they were afraid that these chips were going to end up in, the hands of China. And not only that, the data centers being built out in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, the United States had very strict stipulations that they want no foreign Chinese workers in those facilities. They made it very clear, right, that they cannot hire any Chinese foreign workers. And the reason was because of, they don't want them, one, stealing chips, two, plugging in some type of malware or virus into the data center and monitoring stuff. I mean, there's a whole slew of reasons from a cybersecurity perspective, which I just found, additionally, that, cell phone carriers are also suspect, because, you could pay off or bribe someone working at T-Mobile to hand your phone number off to a bad actor, and then they can basically defeat your two-factor authentication, which is scary to think about, but it is something that has happened, and it is a cybersecurity threat. So for everyone out there, two-factor authentication, your phone number doesn't always protect you. Just know it can happen. Doesn't mean it will, especially with companies like Sprint or Sprint doesn't exist anymore. T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. Because there's a lot of federal charges that can go with that. Anyways, outside of that, let's see what else we got. Rod Stamon says China's already backdoor deals with China. It's all a media cover up. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're still getting their chips one way or the other. They say publicly that they don't want NVIDIA chips and that they're supporting domestic chip manufacturing, SMIC, which is the Taiwan Semi of China, and Huawei. But again, I don't think their chips are nearly as efficient as AMD, nearly as efficient as Nvidia for sure. Let's see what's up. Can't win them all, says Skeptic. That's true. What's your opinion on GPUX strategy? Futures, huh? I will cover that. You know what? Why not? Since we're already talking about compute and all that other stuff, let's talk about it. So I put out this post, and I'm actually quoting your post. But here's the post from GPUX. Okay, so GPUX is the futures compute ETF, and it's coming out of Roundhill. Roundhill, again, is just smashing it with these ETFs. I think this is going to be an absolute banger of an ETF once it actually drops, because now, I posted this. Larry Fink don't miss. He said the United States is short power, we're short compute, we're short chips, and there are going to be shortages in all three and memory. 4 things. I actually believe a new asset class will be buying futures of compute. We just don't have enough compute power, right? Then you had the CME Group and ICE both come out with compute futures. All right. And I'm curious if Hyperliquid is going to come out with one as well. I gave a shout out for the Hype Coin and for Pure, which is a digital asset treasury. Full disclosure, I am invested in this. Okay. It is a digital asset treasury similar to MicroStrategy or BMNR for the Hype Coin. All right. Now that you have innovative Roundhill, who also launched DRAM, one of the most successful ETF launches in recent time with close to $9.5 billion in AUM in under a month, coming out with GPUX. All right. We really at a point where investors have so much optionality, you almost don't need to invest in single stocks anymore. What a great time to be an investor. All right. So if you guys are familiar with gold futures, there's an ETF out there from Wisdom Tree, GDMN. Shout out to Working Investor, who's the one who put me on with that one. Goddamn is the ticker. But it is a gold futures. You get a little bit of leverage in there. Well, you get a lot of leverage. I think it's 1.8x leverage. But with compute, it's going to be interesting, right? Especially in the time that we're living in. And if you believe in the AI trade, the thesis and the memory trade and the compute trade, all of these things, then, if it's going to be around and in demand for the next 5 to 10 years, it seems like a no-brainer. Of course, that's not financial advice. Do your own due diligence. Don't blame me if you lose money. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's see what we have from Rodstamon. Nvidia already going backdoors. Yeah, that's happened quite a bit. Qualcomm also looks like it could go to 400. Yeah, we talked up Qualcomm, man. We talked up Qualcomm a bit, and I am bullish on Qualcomm. I don't own a position, but I talked about how they're and this is coming out of Jordy Visser. Shout out to him, but he talked about how all these EVs, electric vehicles, right? They use Qualcomm chips. It's not far-fetched for robotics to use Qualcomm chips. There's insatiable demand for Qualcomm chips for those two architectures, especially the EVs. Maybe not in the United States, where EV demand is kind of like because it's a gas producing country, but Asian countries really incentivized to go electric, and EV sales are like you can't drive anywhere without seeing EVs, right? Same thing in the Middle East. EVs are becoming very, common, especially in Dubai. You have Teslas all over the place. So that market is expanding, and you're going to need a lot of Qualcomm chips to power the smart dashboards and everything else. And then what happens when you have, which you already kind of do, you start having, AI in cars, right? That's going to be a thing in the not too distant future. You're going to have AI, artificial intelligence in your car. Running natively off the Qualcomm chip. So that's why Qualcomm is kind of bullish, has kind of a future in the AI space as well. Let's see. Yeah, I know, man. I need to get these numbers up, dude. Absolutely pathetic, right? These numbers need to get way up there. Let's see what else we have. MJ Bonner says, get X Bloom coffee machine. Man, I'm the old school drip coffee type of guy. Speaking of coffee, let me get a sip here. But yeah, coffee. X Bloom, I don't think I've ever heard of that. Is there anything like a Keurig? Let's see what else we have here from Sydney Sat Capital. I'm in the car business, so I don't have time to keep up with the news all day. Well, again, I appreciate your support. And I definitely understand the car business, not, me doing it personally, but I have family that has been involved in the car business, from sales to repairs to mechanic to, just junking cars. So I know that business can pretty much take up your whole life. Let's see. Skeptic says, guys, in 5 years, all these valuations will be sky high. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I look at a lot of things. I mean, 5 years from now, I'm not looking at short term. Even though I'll do a short term trade. All right, I know Victor is going to yell at me if I bring up GCTS, but I try to look at things long term, and I know that's kind of not hypocritical, but I don't know what the word is, but like I bought GCTS, but I had no conviction in it, and then I ended up selling at like a small gain just to get my money out because I could not take that roller coaster. But I just didn't see the long term. But I do see the long term with something we will talk about later, and that is ASPI. Okay, moving on, guys. Let's get into a little bit of geopolitics. Again, I don't care about your politics. Don't care about mine. This is a politics-free channel, but we do need to cover politics time to time to understand what the heck is going on in the broader scope of things. Okay, so here we go. All right, this is Trump talking about Iran. So let's listen in on what he had to say. Oh, wait, I forgot. You guys can't even hear this. Ah, what a bummer. What a absolute bummer. Man, you know what? Let's do that. Oh, I can't do that because that's Google Chrome. All right. You know what? We'll have to skip this. He says the only question is the only question left is, do we go in and finish it up, or are they going to be signing the document referencing the negotiations, right? Referencing a treaty or a ceasefire or a deal, whatever it is, right? That is what he is talking about. So hopefully we have some more clear news. There's been a lot of, I want to call it misinformation or misdirection or whatever, deflection even, because you had news outlets reporting that, Pakistan's general is heading there to get, the final documents. And it turned out some of that was not true. And then, you have Trump saying, hey, there's a deal being made. But then you have the Iranian side saying, no, like none of this is true. Like you don't know who to really believe. And then you have Iran that wants to save face. And make it seem like they won a victory. You have the United States that makes it want to seem like they won a victory. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a quagmire of nonsense. But U.S. crude oil did fall below $100, which is a good thing. I mean, Brent is still up, 105, 108. I mean, let's take a look right now. Why not? Let's refresh this bad mamma jamma. All right, so we're looking at crude. Okay. So everything looks like it's still climbing. All right. Crude is still under, or WTI is still under $100. Brent is above 105. Okay. So going back to this, that obviously is not a good thing. I had a whole lineup to talk about this and why this is not a good thing. I will summarize the key points for you guys. All right. But really the U.S. crude oil prices fell below $100 a barrel on Wednesday after President Donald Trump said talks with Iran are in the final stages. All right. WTI futures fell more than 5%, below $100. Trump said earlier this week that he called off renewed military strikes against Iran to give more time for diplomacy at the request of Gulf Arab allies, which turned out to be a lie because you had spokespeople from Qatar, UAE, and Saudi come out and say, we didn't even know about this. This was all new to us, right? So again, misdirection, deflection, misinformation, whatever you want to call it. He told reporters Wednesday that the administration is in the final stages of negotiations with Iran, according to the Pool report. Trump has repeatedly made optimistic statements, which we all know. We're close to a deal. We're not close to a deal. I'm going to strike them. We're going to hold off for now. We're going to let diplomacy work, and then he went off to China, and then we're back to square one, right? During this entire time, it was a stalemate, right? It was a ceasefire. Really, this gave a lot of time for Iran to kind of beef up their air defense. They're getting backing from China and backing from Russia, and the United States did not want to risk another plane going down. So, some are speculating that had something to do with it, right? That had something to do with just stopping the attacks for now. All right. But of course, as the government, you can't just come out and say that. It appears increasingly likely in our view that the Iranian regime will disrupt Strait of Hormuz flows for some time. And this is coming from a Citi analyst telling their clients oil prices could approach $200 a barrel in a worst case scenario where Hormuz remains closed through the end of the year, according to analysts published by Wood Mackenzie on Wednesday. However, prices would sharply fall if the U.S. and Iran reached a quick peace deal that opens up Hormuz by June. All right, according to Wood Mackenzie, spot Brent prices would ease around $80 a barrel by the end of 26 in this scenario. Let me get my highlights from this video. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this was the key highlights from this video. So even if the war ended immediately, and this person talking is RBC's Halima Croft, she said that the UAE energy leader Sultan Al Jaber reportedly said it could take 4 months to get back to 80% of pre-war flows through the Strait of Hormuz. That is absolutely disgusting. So even if a peace deal was reached today, tomorrow, you still got 4 months of basically shocks that you got to work through, right? And supplies you got to revamp. And not only that, a lot of facilities producing all this energy in the Middle East have been hit, damaged, or are shut down, and it's going to take about a month, maybe 2 months to get them back online. So, this, again, the inflation story is something real right now. And we're going to talk about what the Fed is thinking about all this in a moment. So oil below $100. But, she also mentioned that conflicting headlines or missile launches could quickly change market sentiment, which we have seen in the past, where you had an attack on a U.S. Navy ship, and then the markets kind of sold off thinking that we were going to start striking them back, which we did, and that the strikes were going to continue. But so far, it's just been a blockade. That's all it's been up until now. Very limited strikes, if any, unless, it was in self-defense. So as long as it can keep and stay that way, and it does not escalate, the market seems to be taking that very well, as we have seen, right? There's some ships moving, but not enough to make a big dent, right? Not enough to make a huge difference. There's some ships that are still are moving to and from, but nothing like what it was before. So Iran is not going to give up that toll booth idea where they want to provide insurance. You have to pay them in Bitcoin. So shout out to Bitcoin holders, right? It's starting, there is a use case for Bitcoin even in the real world. But yeah, Iran does not, want to give that up. They want to implement that toll booth as part of probably the reparation package and for their control of the Strait of Hormuz. They also have, some internet cables that they were talking about, owning as well, where if they were to cut those, that would be detrimental to the entire region. So that toll booth and insurance thing is still on the table. She also mentioned, President Trump and Gulf countries, if they would even accept that toll booth idea. That's a good question, right? Something people should think about, especially in the future. Like, can you see a world where the U.S. government and the Gulf allies and Europe, i.e. NATO, accept where they get all their oil from, Strait of Hormuz, all that stuff? Do you think they can accept that Iran's going to be making a couple $1 million off every ship? And not only that, you have the Southeastern Asian countries as well, and Asia as well. Do you think they're going to be accepting of this toll booth idea where they're going to be paying millions of dollars per ship to come and go, right? That would make, Iran, pretty wealthy. I mean, they would be making a lot of money. UAE is moving to bypass the Hormuz altogether. So we know that the UAE actually left OPEC recently, in case you guys didn't know. Not a huge news bulletin item, especially if you're not in the natural resource sector or the commodity sector or oil sector. But the UAE left, they want to kind of determine their own future. They've been a part of OPEC for decades. But they're actually building a pipeline to bypass the Strait of Hormuz altogether. So that project at the moment is about 50% complete and it should be operational sometime in 2027. All right. So Iran still has all of the leverage for this, right? For the Strait of Hormuz. So we just have to kind of wait and see what is going to come of this. All right. So let me just check the chat real quick. Are you talking about the video, MJ Bowhunter? If you are, I will. They're part of the show notes, I think. I think I put these videos in the show notes. Let's see. So Sergio says, did you say 4 months before they are at 80% production capacity? Well, then you have 4 months to buy as much crypto as you can before it goes back to 100. DeepSeek, I assume, is what you mean. China's GPT told me that. Yep, that's right. No, that can't be true because China does not like Bitcoin or crypto in general. So they'd probably say Bitcoin is a scam and it's going to zero. But interesting things happening again in the Strait of Hormuz. She brought up a lot of good questions, a lot of good points. And that leads us to this. Okay. So Fed officials see rate hike ahead of inflation, or excuse me, Fed officials see rate hike ahead if inflation stays elevated. Man, I cannot talk today. What is going on with me? So rate hikes is a thing, is a possibility in the future. Just like we've mentioned several times, again, on this stream, we've talked about it. The Fed, the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, stuck in a rock and a hard place. Even more so, Kevin Warsh, now that he was put in there, by the Trump administration, by Trump himself, with the expectation he's going to cut rates immediately, right? Damn the reports, damn everything else. Just lower the rates, right? Because that will allow the United States government to refinance the debt. They're paying almost $1.5 trillion almost of interest just on the loans. So they want to refinance that debt into a lower rate. Amazing. The U.S. government owes money to the Federal Reserve, i.e. America owes money to America. So anyways, though the rate setting Federal Open Market Committee, or the FOMC as we know them, again voted to keep its benchmark rate targeted between 3.5, 3 3/4. The meeting featured 4 no's, the most since 1992, right? And apparently heightened level of disagreement about where policy should go. So this was the last meeting that they had. This is the Fed meeting minutes, okay, what they talked about. And this is some of the key points that we have. All right, while several meeting participants said it would be appropriate to lower when it's clear that inflation is moving back to the Fed's 2% target, or when the labor market weakens, a majority of participants highlighted, however, that some policy firming would likely become appropriate if inflation were to continue to run persistently above 2%. Okay, some policy firming, basically rate hikes, excuse me. That is what they're talking about here. And that obviously is not going to play well with the market. We did see from the CME watch group, or the CME Fed watch tool, that the market is pricing in rate hikes in 2027, and that we're going to get no rate cuts this year, even though you had a lot of banks, institutions forecasting rate cuts. That was when inflation was trending down and it was looking good. We could check Trueflation. Trueflation showed that we were trending down, which was a good thing. But then the last reading that we had, we spiked like crazy. Reason being energy, right? Energy, oil, that kind of stuff. Those shocks are being felt right now. Those disruptions are being felt right now in the rest of the world. The United States might be shielded, but we had AutoZone, publish a letter to their regional, staff, basically saying, hey, ExxonMobil, they're not producing any motor oils right now, right? And that's just one item. We don't know the other major impacts. We know that farmers are being impacted by this because fertilizer costs are going up crazily. And we did see a major uptick in bankruptcies. And they attributed some of that to the rise in fertilizer costs. Guess where fertilizer comes from? It comes from the, Middle East. So absolutely insane what closing a little strait can do to the whole world. Officials broadly agreed that the Iran conflict would have significant implications for the Fed as it pursued its dual goals of full employment and stable prices, though they debated how long the impact of inflation would last. The vast majority of participants noted an increased risk that inflation would take longer to return to the committee's 2% objective than they had previously expected, the document said. So the story is the Fed is thinking about or not taking off the table the possibility of rate hikes. Okay. Warsh is coming into the seat. He's already in the seat. Powell is still going to be on the board of governors, which is a good thing until this whole lawsuit and legal troubles all kind of really blow over, which was a absolute smart move by him. But anyways, Warsh is pretty much stuck in a rock and a hard place too, because on the one hand, he was put there by Trump. And I mean, if you don't do what, dad says, you're going to be in trouble, right? You got to think about it from that angle as well, unfortunately. But Warsh is not going to be the deciding factor of this. There's several members on FOMC that have to vote on this. And we saw from the meeting minutes that there was a huge dissent, 50-50, yes and no. So I think this next meeting is going to be intense. I think it's going to be really, really crazy, because if you do cut rates, you're going to cause inflation, right? You're going to cause inflation because now debt is cheaper. People are going to refinance. People are going to take out loans, et cetera, right? You're going to cause inflation. If you don't, and if the United States heads or is in a recession, what do you think the government's going to do? Especially since this is a midterm year, especially under the Trump administration, what do you think the government is going to do? They are going to print money like crazy. You also have the backdrop of this conflict. You also have the backdrop of defense spending, 1.5 trillion, and you have the backdrop of the Federal Reserve doing their RMP, which is basically shadow quantitative easing. So we're already there. We're already in the gradual print, and it doesn't matter what the Fed does. At this point, interest rates don't matter. It's kind of crazy to say that. Lynn Alden basically said that interest rates are not going to save anything. The gradual print, the big print has already happened. Money is flooding into the markets, and the winners of all of this are going to be asset owners, people who own appreciating assets, stock market, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, crypto, whatever, right? Pick your poison. The people who are going to get screwed the most are the people who don't have any assets to speak of. Even real estate could do very well in this environment. So, if you're watching this channel, make sure you're investing accordingly, and definitely taking this serious. If you have friends and family, make sure that, you're enticing them or educating them on investing, because, the American people are going to get crushed who don't own assets and are paying insane amounts of money for gas. Okay. I had a nice video lined up, but can't show it here on Firefox because the sound does not work. And this was Jeff Bezos. Excuse me. This was Jeff Bezos talking, about space as well, not just, AI productivity gains. So I do have some notes here that we can cover real fast. All right. So Bezos is highly optimistic on AI. He's pushing back against the fear that AI will eliminate all the jobs. He argues that bigger outcomes could be just labor shortage, but not mass unemployment. And we're already seeing, new job sectors, being created from all this AI stuff. If you're a little entrepreneurial, right, you can start an AI agency. You can start an AI business. You can help businesses integrate AI. You can have Jensen Huang just came out and said that, if he's paying an engineer $500,000 a year and that engineer reports back they only use $5,000 worth of tokens, he's going to be extremely pissed. is essentially what he was saying, because AI is supposed to make people more productive, right? That's like he mentioned, that's like an architect not using CAD, right, which is design software. So, all these CEOs, all these people, companies in general want their employees to use AI. And it's not just to replace them. That's not the only, that's not, how do I frame it? That's not the end goal, is to just have AI replace them. It's to make people more productive with less, right? We're seeing teams, software developing, get cut. Teams of 50 are being cut down to 5 people, and the rest of the staff is replaced with AI. I mean, that is a real thing. And you also have, that figure robot that we showed you earlier. I mean, that, low hanging fruit. I mean, imagine if Amazon just replaced all of their Amazon warehouse workers with these robots. So it is coming, but people can use AI to enhance their skill sets. But yes, the sentiment is pretty negative right now when it comes to people leaving the college, life and heading into the workforce and finding no jobs. So it is, if people know how to use AI and how to understand how to use AI, I think they'll have a better chance. At least that's what kind of the studies and what the sentiment is looking like. So he also brought up AI is going to elevate workers rather than replace them, again, which we just spoke about. He also brought up space. He also brought up space and data centers in space, and he's saying that it's closer than we might think. He's thinking in the next couple of years we're going to start seeing more of it. He also mentioned that jobs like software engineers need to reframe their job, saying that the real value is not just writing code; it is identifying problems and helping solve them. which is a big deal. That's the thing that, AI may not be able to just replace. You're still going to need, at the end of the day, a human or human decision making to make that decision, right? And that is kind of where companies are heading. You have Meta, who rolled out a monitoring tool on basically their entire employee base, monitoring and seeing what they're doing and basically feeding their AI, feeding this master AI, whatever it is. And their end goal is to replace some of their workforce with AI. Again, doing less or doing more with less, right? They'd have less overhead. They can probably cut a lot of the contract force that they do have, or cut a lot of the force where they're, they overhired. I mean, we saw that during COVID. Meta went out on this massive hiring spree, and then a year and a half later, they're cutting jobs like it was going out of style. So, that is something that is coming. So that was pretty much kind of the summary of what Jeff Bezos was talking about. And, again, just some points. I wish I could play the video because I didn't even I just wish I could play that damn video, but whatever, man. We'll have to get it right the next time. I apologize again. I really need to get this Firefox thing figured out. Anyways, OpenAI to confidentially file for IPO as soon as Friday. This just landed. Massive news. Especially again when we're talking about these private companies going public. OpenAI, well, really it was Sam Altman, Elon Musk. They were fighting in court. That has come to a close. Now Musk and Altman can focus on their companies going public. So OpenAI is going to file for IPO as soon as Friday. Hopefully we get a prospectus sometime in the near future. Again, had a nice little video lined up. Can't even watch the video. Let's see. OpenAI has been preparing to IPO as soon as the fourth quarter of this year. As CNBC previously reported, OpenAI CFO Sarah Friar told CNBC last month that it is good hygiene for a company's of OpenAI's size to look and feel and act like a public company, but she wouldn't comment on the specific timeline of when the IPO is going to drop. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley did not comment, and that was pretty much it. They're going to be competing with Anthropic. They're going to be competing with SpaceX for obviously investor demand or investor money. There was a line in here and I'm trying to find it. Yes. So we're going to be covering Anthropic here in a moment, but Anthropic is currently in talks with investors to raise money at a $900 billion valuation, which would push it ahead of OpenAI. The company said in April that it's topped $30 billion in annualized revenue. And OpenAI, the biggest problem with OpenAI right now is that they're burning cash. And they're not profitable, right? That is the biggest problem with OpenAI right now. And they've just been raising cash, extending their runway. And now they're going to be tapping the public markets, right? They've been investing in data centers. They've been striking deals with Nvda. There's a whole circular financing thing that's been going on. So, this I think is going to be like when we're talking about these AI companies, Anthropic is definitely taking the lead at the moment. And here's why. Anthropic's set to hit $10.9 billion in revenue during the second quarter. It will be their first profitable quarter. OpenAI is not profitable. As a matter of fact, they're burning cash like it's, again, going out of style. Anthropic is on track to generate $10.9 billion in revenue during the second quarter. If Anthropic hits that target, it will post its first profitable quarter. Anthropic generated $4.8 billion during the first quarter. The person said, meaning that its sales more than doubled in a matter of months. Revenue in 2026 reached $10 billion. Okay. Additionally, even so, the company appears to be working its way back into the government's good graces. Again, Anthropic had a falling out with basically the Department of War. They were, blacklisted and labeled a supply chain risk, and now it's in the courts to be handled. But you had, Anthropic meet with, the Trump administration to kind of work through this, and Trump did say that, they're working on things. It's going good. Okay, but Donald Trump told CNBC in April that a deal between the DoD and Anthropic is still possible. They just have to work through all these issues. And with Anthropic releasing Mythos in the future, the Department of War is going to want that, especially these federal agencies that were all told to move off of Anthropic, because a lot of companies, Anthropic was the only AI model allowed on the classified network. It was a big part of the Maduro raid Palantir was a part of that as well. But Anthropic also mentioned, that last month that enterprise and developer demand for Claude, as well as its sharp rise in consumer usage, led to the inevitable strain on the infrastructure. That's why they're hunting for compute, and they made a big deal with Elon Musk's SpaceX to basically borrow some of their computing power, right? So the Colossus One data center in Memphis, Tennessee, for instance, is going to be used by Anthropic. And Anthropic is going to be paying $1.25 billion to SpaceX per month for this compute. So SpaceX is already making money before it even IPO. So that's a huge deal there. So that's what we have coming out from Anthropic and what we have to talk about for OpenAI. Again, the whole market is waiting on these big names, SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic, to hit the market. The indexes, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, are going to absolutely fly once the inclusion happens. And that's why we're seeing a slew of these ETFs come out, right? We already see auto-callable ETFs. We see high-yield ETFs, cover call ETFs coming out for OpenAI. We see all of this stuff coming out for these three names already, right? There's going to be a slew of ETFs coming out for these three names. So absolutely interesting to keep an eye on. All right, let me move on here. We can't watch this video again. This was about SpaceX. Apologize for that, guys. Let's just check in on our boy over here. Okay, Frank is still going. 177 hours, 220,000 packages. All right, let's go. Okay, so this is the last item, or one of the last items for the news segment. Samsung strike put on hold. Samsung couldn't reach an agreement with with their labor party or whatever, the labor union, and instead of striking, right, they were the labor union was basically going to strike today, but they're going to hold off. Right? How nice of them, especially at this moment. You have Samsung, SK Hynix getting tons of money, getting tons of inflow, memory demand going through the roof. Samsung cannot afford a strike at this moment, or else they will lose a lot of the market share to SK Hynix and Micron. So the pending strike of Samsung workers has been put on hold. Korean news agency Yonhap reported as a tentative deal over wages, and the union will be put to a vote. We will postpone the general strike scheduled for May 21st to June 7th until further notice, the joint headquarters of Samsung Electronics Labor Union said in a notice obtained by the news outlet. The vote is set to start on Saturday. So we will have news either Saturday or Sunday, and of course, we will cover it on this channel. All right, so separately on Wednesday, Micron's Vice President of Global Operations, Manish Bhatia, told attendees at a JP Morgan investment conference that the company's financial outlook has strengthened since it last gave its outlook in February. Our financial outlook has strengthened since our last earnings call, Bhatia said. We're on track for another substantial record free cash flow in fiscal Q3. Our balance sheet has never been stronger, and that's underscored by multiple credit rating agencies, yada, yada, yada. Demand continues to outpace our ability and the industry's ability to supply due to persistent structural factors. And so we expect tightness for HBM, DRAM, NAND to continue well beyond calendar year 2026, referencing 2027. So if you want exposure to all of these memory names that invest in these specific things, DRAM is the choice. You also have KMEM that's coming out of Curve. You have DRMY, DRMY, that's coming from X funds. So you have plenty of options, right? Plenty of options out there in the market. Let me check the chat real quick. Should have bought Spacey. I hear a lot of people are happy with Spacey. Yeah, height rakes. Yeah, rate hikes. Man, I don't know what's going on with me today. I don't think I had enough coffee. I started growing my own vegetables, no pesticides required. Yeah, you're going to need that because vegetables are going to be expensive very soon. Let's see. RDO's CAD is so tedious, in my opinion. Designer comments. I've never used CAD. I don't think I ever will. I'm not an architect of any sort. Okay, so that was the news segment. We just got one last piece of news. All right, I talked about ASP isotopes on this channel. We're pretty much a little over the hour, and I appreciate you guys for sticking it in there with me. All right, going over all this new stuff. But ASP Isotopes enters into a definitive agreement with TerraPower for a loan agreement for construction of a HALEU production facility and supply agreements for HALEU fuel. Okay. Do you guys remember yesterday, the day before, and I think I mentioned it on Sunday as well, talking about the importance of HALEU? It is a uranium enriched fuel that's going to be used for SMRs, small modular reactors. You have X Energy. That's one of the names of. You have Oklo, who's another SMR. But ASP is a layer below all of that. But what ASPI is doing, they're going to spin off a segment of their company into something called QLE is the ticker, and it's called Quantum Leap Energy. And Quantum Leap Energy is going to be focused on HALEU production. HALEU production, there's only 2 companies right now in the world that I know of that are producing this stuff, and that's LEU, Centrus Energy in the United States, and another company in Russia. Russia is sanctioned, so the United States can't buy from them. Okay, so the United States is only working with Centrus Energy. This would be a second company in the United States that produces HALEU, and that is QLE in the future. You can't buy QLE right now. It is not tradable, nothing like that. But if you're an owner of ASP Isotopes, ASPI is a ticker. What they intend to do in the future, and it is a small cap, high risk, high loss. All right, so keep that in mind. This is not financial advice. I'm just going over a holding that I do own. But ASP Isotopes, they are going to spin off QLE. If you're a holder of ASP Isotopes, they will supposedly give you some shares of this new company when they do spin it off, right? Another thing of note is ASP Isotopes works on something called Isotope 28, or it's called Silicon 28, and that is going to be used for quantum chips. Okay, so again, if you're betting on the quantum trade in the future, or betting on the future in general, quantum chips, then this might be something of interest. They literally develop the material used for quantum chips, for high-end quantum chips. So just wanted to briefly cover this because I know we have a few people in the community that do own this stock, and this is some actually kind of important news. So the whole deal is TerraPower provided a $22 million loan to QLE to support the construction of a new uranium enrichment facility. The supply agreement, the company signed a long-term supply agreement where QLE will provide HALEU for the initial fuel core of TerraPower's Natrium plant in Wyoming, followed by a 10-year supply contract. So look at that. QLE already has a contract. All right. QLE is establishing the HALEU production capabilities internationally, including Palindaba, South Africa. Excuse me if I butcher that. And the companies are exploring the development of additional enrichment facilities within the United States. Deliveries are targeted to support TerraPower's natrium reactors, which have been under development in Kemmerer, Wyoming. Kemmerer. So this is good news again for ASPI or the future QLE whenever they do spin off that company. And, hopefully as an ASPI holder or shareholder, I will get some of those QLE shares. So uranium, again, the uranium story is interesting, especially with everything we've just been talking about, the Strait of Hormuz being closed. There's still a lot of uncertainty with how Iran is going to take this and what they're going to do with it. And, they're not just going to let the United States get away with everything that has just happened. They're going to want a lot of concessions. So countries are going to have to think, after experiencing supply shocks of oil, what's the next best thing? And the next best thing is uranium. All right. At least that's part of the story. In my kind of base case, countries will move towards, uranium. Uranium's going to catch a huge bid. And there's only so much uranium around, and there's not that many. Also betting on SMRs, small modular reactors. You have Oklo, like I mentioned, SMR, I think NuScale, and you also have, X Energy. These are producing SMRs for data centers. All right, the small modular reactors. They're producing this equipment for data centers. X Energy already has an agreement with Amazon to basically power their data centers in the future with their SMRs. So a lot of interesting stuff. We have Citizen of the Year saying, just finished a gym workout. Well, that's awesome, man. Health is wealth, as they say. Health is wealth. SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic, all expected IPO later this year. Absolutely. You're going to buy a high yield ETF for these things? Let me see if I can pull up his channel real fast. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the stream. We've been going on for about an hour and 15 minutes. However, I will stick around for a little bit and shoot the breeze with anyone. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk about anything in the stream, we can absolutely do that. I will put that link here in the chat in just a moment. If you guys want to check out Citizen of the Year, he also covers a lot of finance topics and videos. As you guys can see, I just watched his OVL video. And, I don't know why he does these ranking videos for these ETFs, for these high yield ETFs, because his rankings are always wrong. Even though he uses a proprietary ranking system, his ranking system is complete wrong. So, I'm only joking, of course. But yeah, his content's worth it. Definitely check him out. Did we cover Nvidia earnings? Huge dividend increase, says Citizen of the Year. And we did cover Nvidia earnings. I'm bullish on Nvidia. It's so much great stuff coming out of Nvidia. It sucks that, Nvidia is kind of giving up the Chinese market. But at the same time, I think China is just putting up a front. They're saying, oh, we don't want your chips. But under the hood, they're finding every which way to acquire Nvidia chips, as we saw with our beleaguered Supermicro SMCI company, where one of the founders was actually, switching out, serial numbers, on servers heading for China that weren't supposed to have Nvidia chips, but they did, right? So obviously, I think China definitely wants the chips, and they're going to find ways to get them one way or the other. The other day, someone asked me if I was using my own judgment in my power ranking videos. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, dude, your power rankings are wrong, dude. Your proprietary system for ranking them, it's not right. It's incorrect. You need to use my power ranking. Oh my God. And I tell you, the internet. Let me get this StreamYard. If anyone wants to come onto the channel and we could talk talk about anything that we covered in the stream, or, if you guys just want to shoot the breeze and tell us what you're investing in, or, what you think is important, we can absolutely cover that. For my ex viewers, I'm going to get you guys that link as well. I know most ex viewers are kind of shy, being in the, weird corners of the internet. And I say that because, man, X be on some wild stuff sometimes. X be on some wild stuff sometimes, man. I'm telling you, like, I sometimes hate opening up X because it just gets really like weird. And it's not even like stuff I'm searching for. It's like people will tag me and people will tag me in these weird, odd things. Anyways, and of course they're bots, right? They're bots or trolls or whatever. But anyways, that is in there in case anyone does want to join. So let's see if we have any breaking news, any other additional news that just came out. Let's see. Covered that. Yeah. Shout out to Skeptic again. If you guys aren't following him on X, highly recommend you do, because he's pumping out a lot of good information on ETFs. He's usually the first of the punch whenever it comes to covering these things, or at least dropping a nice little infographic that tells us how these work. So definitely give him a follow if you're on X. His tag is Skeptic or Marcus Carter 17. All right, and that is Marcus with a K. It looks like Grayscale. I mean, this is huge. I like this, especially if you're a hype holder. So Grayscale is buying Hype. Already filed the S1 registration statement for Hype ETF in January. We also saw Morgan Stanley filing for Solana. All right, filing for a Solana ETF. Let's see what else we have here. How's it an AI bubble if we are literally spending money on AI and finding use cases? That's why I don't believe in the friggin' AI bubble thesis. I think it's a load of garbage, to be honest. The people who are calling it an AI bubble either don't invest in AI or anything related with the AI trade. Nvidia, the hyperscalers, the chips, the photonic plays, everything. They don't invest in it, or they don't use AI, right? That's really the only two. Because if you're using AI, you're even more bullish on the AI trade. I use AI, ChatGPT, Gemini almost daily now at this point. whether I'm doing light research or surface scratching a stock or something, I'm always using artificial intelligence for everything. I'll ask it questions that I'm just curious on. Of course, you got to fact check a lot of this stuff because sometimes it's either what do they call it, hallucination, or you can fact check it amongst the LLMs. You could plug that data from ChatGPT into Gemini and see if the information is accurate. That's one way to do it as well. Or put it against 3 or 4 different AIs and see, what information they all spit out, because you'll find that there's tiny little variances here or there. Like I was using Grok, Gemini, and ChatGPT to basically true up the information and make sure it's as accurate as possible. It also sometimes references, links or articles that are months and even years old. So you have to double check the work. Let's see. The X for you section is filled with race baiting. Yeah. And murder. Yep. I never looked up, and I follow sports and finance. Exactly. Yep. That's why I get scared on X sometimes, man. It's just be nonsense. It just be real nonsense on freaking X sometimes. Shameless plug, only ETFs. That is right. Let me give a collaboration between myself and Skeptic a little bit of a plug here. Man, we got so many videos to make. I mean, there's freaking new ETFs dropping every other day. So if you go to YouTube and you want to check out this new channel that we started, you just plug in @onlyeTFs and you'll find our collaboration channel. Okay. X viewers don't really have to do this unless you want to view this stuff on YouTube, the actual videos. But we just did a video on EUV. We also talked about Nvda and kind of all the ETFs surrounding Nvda for high income. So again, this is a shameless plug. So we go over a lot of things: high yield ETFs, weekly income, cover calls, dividend income investing, all that stuff. So yes, Solana, and I had the article. Here it is. No, that's not it. Where is it? Is this it? There it goes. I totally forgot I had it. But yes, Morgan Stanley filed for a Solana Trust ETF, similar to like IBIT, right? So this is huge for Solana. Again, you're going to get a lot of passive inflows. I still don't, I haven't done any DD and Solana and why it's so important, but you had that Solana staking ETF, and coming from, I think it was Rex that had the Solana staking ETF. But you have several big firms moving towards Solana as well, right? They have an interest in Solana, XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum. So if the institutions are willing to bet and make an ETF, so they can collect fees, there's obviously some interest there. You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. This is, I don't know what proprietary ranking system is, but it's wrong. ChatGPT should be first. It's because I'm a ChatGPT user. No, but I know Gemini, honestly, for me has been better at kind of presenting the information over ChatGPT. I don't know. I like Gemini for a lot of things over ChatGPT, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe I should just switch. I know Claude, like, everyone's been raving about Claude and how it's 100 times better than ChatGPT. I have not used Claude yet, but I think I will, especially when it comes to this whole vibe coding and creating apps and all this other hoopla surrounding Anthropic. Skeptic says, wow, now I've heard it all. Side note, know who already has a Solana slot in their ETF? Blocks. Yep, long blocks. As soon as Nicholas thinks it's okay to add it. Yeah, if Nicholas is going to add it to blocks, I mean that's even more bullish. Yeah, blocks is an outstanding ETF. Even though I don't own it. I like, if I didn't have MSTW, and if I didn't have as heavy of a position in MSTW, I would definitely be in blocks. Because again, it has Bitcoin, it has Ethereum exposure, some of the miners, some of the companies associated with the whole cryptocurrency trade, and I mean blocks does an exceptional job. Nicholas, who runs it, he did an interview with Max Convexity, the cover caller. You guys can check him out, but he did an interview with him, outstanding interview. And what I liked he said the words that I liked, and he said that he wanted to create a product where you can spend the distribution guilt-free. You don't need to reinvest it or any of that, that we know from some of the other high yield ETFs in the space. But you can spend that guilt-free, and he eats his own cooking. I think that is a big freaking deal. He actually owns blocks in his own personal portfolio, and he's even said he's bullish on blocks and kind of the crypto trade. They came out a lot of interesting stuff too. They have Weapon and Nukes or NukeX, from Nicholas Funds as well, X Funds ETFs. So something to definitely check into. Shannon says subscribe to only ETFs. Appreciate that. I think we're going to be changing this logo because that logo is where is it? Where did I put that video? Anyways, I think we're going to be changing that logo soon. Probably to something a little more professional. Something that looks a little more nicer. Let's see what we have here. So Sergio says hood. I saw that message, Skeptic. Give me a second. Hood will pump with that Solana ETF. Rocket. Let's see. We have from Assets, Income, and TV. There's really a strong use case for Solana being used by AI agents for online purchases and transactions. I've heard that as well. And my bet is on Ethereum. Like everything leads to Ethereum. I hate to say it that way and frame it that way. I know Solana has a good case, a good project, but I think all roads eventually lead to Ethereum, because there's also talks of using Ethereum by AI agents, right? And maybe that's what they mean. Solana, which I think sits above Ethereum. Everything's going to be just used by Ethereum, and that's my bull case for investing into BM&R. I mean, it goes deeper than that, but you guys get the gist of it. There was some data published recently that Ethereum, or excuse me, tokenization of real world assets is gaining an immense amount of traction. Let's see. So I see your message, Cookie Mon, for IonQ. I hate myself because I was about to buy IonQ. I bought, I was looking at it. I saw it was like 6 or 7% down. I was thinking about buying a position in IonQ, and then I was like, you know what? Let me just hold off for now. And now it ripped up 7-8%. So missed those gains, but hey, it is what it is. Citizen of the Year uses Huawei version of Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT. He's one of them. I always knew it. It's always the ones closest to you. That's funny. Let's see. Shannon says ChatGPT got limits too quick, so Claude and Gemini it is. I don't know. I've never hit my token usage limits on ChatGPT. And I mean, at one point I was abusing the hell out of it. I was uploading 100 freaking screenshots, documents, charts, all that stuff. And it just kept pumping out information. But their new ChatGPT, the new one, supposedly is all the rave right now. I don't know. I'm going to keep using two of them, Gemini and ChatGPT, to kind of true up the information. Solana has ETH potential. So let me look for that article about the real world tokenization statistics. This is coming from the Kobesi letter. Let me close that. All right, so this is coming from the Kobesi letter. Tokenized assets have never been more popular. The distributed assets, let me get that. The distributed asset value of real world tokenized assets is now up to a record $33 billion. I mean, not a lot, when you compare it to the total addressable market, but this represents a 1,600% increase over the last 2 years, and adoption is only accelerating. Growth in these assets gained momentum after on-chain platforms like Jupiter began listing tokenized assets through partnerships with Securitize, Xstocks, and Ondo Finance, prompting a 34% week-over-week volume growth. Meanwhile, Bloomberg reported this week that the SEC is leaning towards allowing the trading of tokenized assets in a surprise move. That was the SEC's innovative rule that we talked about earlier in the week. This would mark one of the biggest shifts in the crypto infrastructure yet. Tokenization is taking over. And if you guys have heard me blab on about, Ethereum's bull case. It's that everything is going to be, hosted on Ethereum, everything. And the reason why that is bullish is because of the transaction volumes, and the burn, right? The burn creates a deflationary effect on Ethereum, making it more valuable. And that's the more transactions that take place on Ethereum, that could be bullish for Ethereum. And then eventually, Ethereum treasuries like BMNR. So that is really the base case, I suppose, for this. And we've covered before how large banks, and there's that word again, institutions, they are all moving onto the Ethereum blockchain. We covered BlackRock and we covered Fidelity having money market funds. I think it was Fidelity. Yeah, I think it is Fidelity, FJXXX or something. But we covered them moving their money market funds onto the Ethereum blockchain. So huge news there. ETH is a base blockchain use. You can't really beat that. Exactly. So Shannon says, I'm on free tiers of the LLM, so that's why they limit quick. Claude and Gemini rarely limit me unless it's busy times or I'm uploading a lot of stuff. Yes, I pay for ChatGPT and I pay for Gemini, and I barely even use them. Like my token usage is probably disgustingly low. Well, I think that will be it for the stream, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a special shout out to the 38 viewers on YouTube. All right. And again, for those who are just joining, if you're on YouTube, make sure you guys check out my new channel. You can put into the bar at Eugen Invest. I will be moving away from the old channel. That will be more about high yield, all that kind of good stuff. And shout out to the 58 viewers on X. Appreciate you guys joining me for this stream. All right. I hope you guys got some value. Hope you got some entertainment. And I will definitely be fixing Firefox and StreamYard so we can get back to watching some videos. All right. So as always, appreciate you guys. You guys have a great rest of your evening, great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you guys in the next stream. You guys take care.